Bueno, buenos días.
Good morning.
La idea de este panel es contarles el proceso en el que nos embarcamos.
This panel is intended to talk or to give an idea of the last process we have started. On December 2016, we traveled together to US. We were invited by a company. We started dialogue sessions. All these institutions that are represented in this panel, plus Coninagro, that is not present today, although the representative of Coninagro was not able to make it here, but he is present. We want to share with you how we have experienced this process, how important this process is, how we have been working so far, and how we will continue working in the future, because there is a feeling of empathy, and we are aware of the fact that changes are faster and increasingly dynamic, and so we need to have this panel, this group of people talking and considering all these topics. We are going to share our view with you, and finally we will listen to Santiago, who will explain to us the importance of this for the ministry. In CREA, we are working around the Vision 2025. We look at the community as a reference of innovation. And this framework pushes us to create these dialogue sessions and these groups that help solve many problems. I understand that the seed law is a huge opportunity we have to take. If we want to attract investment and not exporting talents, this is what we have to discuss. We need to reach a consensus. We need to make up working groups and continue working on these topics. This is an opportunity we have to take, and we are working on that. The seed law is very important for us. It is an investment possibility. The seed law is intended to acknowledging the importance of intellectual property. If we don't recognize that, there will be no investment. First, we're going to talk about technical things, then about union affairs. The intention of APRESID is to drive and push new technologies through science, innovation, and network knowledge. We couldn't disregard this topic, so we had the institutional mandate to strive for these and to find tools that can help all of us. It's not an easy topic. It's not a topic and an issue that is clearly understood and well managed by growers. It's very complex from the institutional standpoint, but also from the individual and personal standpoints, because people have different points of views. We growers are considering to give up some rights that we have because we give priority to what science brings to us. And sometimes we are lagging behind. We are missing opportunities or investments. To be honest, it's not easy to come together as representatives of growers that have different ideas. They don't agree on everything. We need to generate trust. This is a very rich process. We shared our points of view, how we felt about what was going around, and tried to put ourselves in the shoes of other representatives. We need to agree on the fact that these are institutions from different parts of the country with a different reality, with different problems. So in this group, we had to be aware of this. We need to understand the different viewpoints. I think that this was enriching for all of us. This is what I feel. This is the feeling I can see. There is a need to go towards bioeconomy, to introduce new processes. We are talking about gene editing. This has not been regulated yet, and we are sort of lagging behind, trying to catch up with the new things. This is a very powerful tool. We need to take care of this, and we need to continue generating trust. APRESID is willing to support this process, and is really very pleased with this process, with how things are proceeding. And we know that we will continue meeting and bringing all these different representatives together. People don't agree on, for instance, receiving genes. Some believe that receiving genes means wasting money, but okay, we have to think in the common well-being of Argentina. I understand that companies make business. I am the owner of a company, and I understand that we make business and we need to have profitability. But sometimes we have to give up some things in order to benefit the group. From the rural society believes that we have to make the best technology available to our growers. We need to give up rights of a law that is already an old law that needs to be updated. When you are a member of a union, considering this case that you have to start paying for the autogamous, some growers are reluctant to do that. We are dealing with this for 15 years now. I remember that once we had a meeting at a hotel. 12 years ago, we had meetings with representatives of the industry, but we didn't, we couldn't agree on that, and there were taxes involved. You had to pay taxes in the port. You have to pay taxes in your business, and so things are changing. We need to be updated. So as an institution, we requested a sort of transition period where the grower can be gradually adapted, I won't go into detail about what the project is about. We insist a lot on this transition period, where in this period people can start reporting things or can provide information about what their current status is, and so then start from scratch. The INTA is a very important player here. It's a very important player in the market because it could offer varieties at fair market prices. we also would like to be able to predict what we are going to buy and what will be the cost in 3 years' time, for example. I think that we are close to that. We are almost there. We need to take this opportunity. More than 50 or 60% of agriculture business in Argentina proceeds through contracts, and you have to update or renew your contracts every year, and sometimes you don't know what will happen next year because agriculture is dynamic and is evolving all the time. All of a sudden you have resistant weeds and you don't know what to do. This is the framework we deal with. We can't miss this opportunity. There's not only we are not only lagging behind in wheat and soybean. Also, we are lagging behind in vegetable crops, in cotton. I've attended the early meetings of APRESID in Huerta Grande. I can remember that. This is a revolution. Okay, let's keep going with this revolution.
Good morning, and I'd like to thank APRESID for this opportunity for scheduling this issue on the agenda. I agree with Pedro when he was saying that as a result of this trip to the U.S., we began to work and to meet on a regular basis, I think once a month, in order to discuss certain issues. Because as Gonzalo was saying, for 15 years, besides fighting against the government, we were arguing among ourselves, and that was pointless. The government vision, to involve public and private sectors so that voices are heard and consensus are reached. This meant that it was about time to start discussing together. I come from in our history, the Institute provided the right means to start communicating, and we know which the responsibilities are. We began to understand the problems or issues of others, and we began to find many solutions, and that is the way we have, that is the path we have walked until up until this year. So what we did was to gather all of the institutions and devise a route map. This was essential. We sort of organized or said what was essential and the things that we cannot negotiate. And to have all of the resources necessary to be the authority on the issue. And on the other hand, that everything that is patents, that is the farmer pays everything, and that is the end of the issue. And then ownership, we could negotiate some issues. It's not easy at the CRA. We represent cotton and cherry and all of the things in between. So we are accustomed to just focusing on wheat or soybean, and we forget about everything else. So we just tend to focus always on the same matters, and there are other technologies, new things, and so we intend to build a framework law, an umbrella law that will address all of the issues. And so we reached some consensus and disagreements that are based more on transition and some discussions, I would say, philosophical somehow, as to how much should the public sector intervene, because for example, the introduction of a variety today, or an apple, a different kind of apple variety, then would impact on the business. And so we want to develop or have a law that includes everything, so that we don't have to then, review the law because it's outdated. We have, as I was saying, a roadmap, and we have to bring this to the representatives' chamber and then the senators' chamber. So we have to resign some things, to lose some things. The production issue, then makes the provinces in the north need or require certain technologies that are not required in the southern areas of the country. So we have to seek what is the best for all and make the effort, and this seeds law that have taken a lot of time to pass it. We understand that there are many players, many scenarios. We understand that there are family farmers, so we have to discuss that also to protect them. But without a doubt, we need to make this happen this year and to pass the law this year. And I'd like to highlight that on the behalf of CRA and the unions, that we recognize IP, that is, companies that develop technology have to be profitable. They have to, otherwise no one would be manufacturing or developing technologies. And we need the law to be, the scope of the law should be, address all of the producers or the manufacturers. So this is CRA's viewpoint or perspective. Then Santiago will discuss times, and we don't have much time ahead of us. And, well, the challenge to work with the legislators in order to show them the way we should walk. So this would be then our perspective. Thank you. We'll continue with Alfredo to have a look at the standards in the industry. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank Propiedad for this opportunity. Maybe I'm repeating myself, but I'll start with a story, just to show why we're here. In different meetings, and that at that time it was with the German representative of the Department of Agriculture. The government had a perspective as to farmers, and then companies came and complained. Then they reversed their perspective or position. And so what did the government do? They just summoned both parties, and then they asked them to negotiate and come up with a solution. And I think this is what we're doing. This is exactly what we're doing. You should understand that we're 6 of us here, government officials, and we have the responsibility to represent all of the different interests, the different stakeholders, and common welfare. So oftentimes we have to make decisions, and we have to discuss them internally. So what was the novelty of all this? Well, the fact that we would start a process with the private sector only, and we had to find this solution to then go to the state. We couldn't ask the state to address an issue when we could not reach an agreement before. So that was the first challenge, that is to build trust. And this was a process, as Pedro was saying, Eduardo was saying. We conducted several meetings. We drafted several documents, several ideas. But we knew that we had this objective to once and for all find a solution in terms of this issue that has been on the agenda for 15 years or so. And this is how we came to this point. I mean, knowing that there were some restrictions, knowing that there were some ancestral rights, and all of that sort of became more flexible, and we had to work a lot to be able to communicate what this was about. This was not easy. And the process, I would say, moved forward, and we were able to draft the Memorandum of Understanding, and everything was focused on wheat and soybean, and then other players became interested in this debate. So from the ministry, we started a discussion or a meeting with other players, for example, the peanut industry, where there is a private program and another program that is going to be launched by Inta Manfredi, but there's the minister said the other day, for example, cotton in the Chaco, so that we saw that there were some crops in the different provinces, so other players joined this committee, and I had the opportunity to speak to many ministers of provinces, and they are all acquainted with this. Now provinces are acquainted with the issue, the representatives are acquainted, the farmers, and we all know what we're discussing. As it was said before, now we have the challenge from the legislators, and I think we will all need to participate. But each of you and each of us may know probably a representative, so we need to communicate what is being discussed. And what is being discussed is to find a solution so that Argentina does not lose competitiveness, so that all crops can have research programs that benefit farmers and the production matrix of Argentina, so that investments are brought in, so jobs are created, and so that Argentina can capitalize what they have, like 5 Nobel Prizes, where we have know-how. There is a CONICET, a research institute, as the ministry said the other day, where there's a private, a leading private sector, and there are many other I think that this is an opportunity we should not miss. So we have accepted these restrictions. I think there's a transition in place. As Gonzalo said, there is an opportunity to organize this issue. We want to drive a cultural change, and then, to then move on to other issues that also demand our attention. Thank you, Alfredo. I was just reading a message. We'll give the floor to Santiago, so he will give us the perspective of the ministry. I would like to congratulate APRESID on this Congress, and I'd like to thank them for this opportunity. President Macri called in his vision to be this, Argentina should be the supermarket of the world. And this is a very ambitious goal. We can achieve it, but to do so, we we need to be fully equipped. That is, if you just climb a mountain, you need to be fully equipped to do so. And the market is very competitive, and we want to be part of these markets. And to do that, we need to have all of the tools at hand. There is a law. It's called the minimum law. The result is limited by the restrictive results, and Marines call this the speed of the fleet will determine the slowest ship. And so technologies such as biotechnologies, gene addition or genetic addition, as Pedro said, it's essential to have tools and to be able to use them, because at some time development stops or delays. Because it's a very dynamic research process. If this genetics is not there, then we lose the race, and that is the whole point. As the CIS laws, on the contrary, as they recognize there's been tremendous generosity of all of the parties involved here, working to have a law to involve everyone. When that is a fact, then not only farmers will be able to produce more in terms of volume and quality, but also companies will have the opportunity to invest. Companies that are here today and companies that are waiting. We can see people with a lot of ag-tech ideas to improve technologies, but we also need technological investments, and we have a lot of opportunities. For example, genetic addition. There's no regulation, you were saying, right? But in Argentina, gene addition is registered as crops. So Argentina is at the forefront to streamline the process. So in order to have sustainable farming, we need a seeds law. And the draft, and I understand this has been on the agenda for 15 years, I think today there is a political opportunity to make this a reality. And for this to come true, we need the involvement of all of us, because when legislators listen to, for example, farmers, they understand what the issue is about, what the problem is about. Your story is important, and you need to let them know what your story is about, so they understand what having what it means to have a CIS law and not to have a CIS law. And so a lot has been said about the framework of this law, and I'd like to highlight a few aspects. NASA today has the technological capacity to detect thermoplasma. Today, with technology, we control this issue. We understand that with a board of directors will allow the state to be in the right position to help to enforce the law. If it's not enforced, it's a dead law. And we can do it through this institution. So we are thankful to all of us here, to all of you here, and for your effort in order to have this draft. And we should understand that a law that it's not easy to get, but to have this law that will be very important in order to become, to eventually become the supermarket of the world. Thank you, Santiago. Would you like to, if you don't have any other comments, then we'll go on to the questions then.
The first question is, what is the role of the multiplier? See, any grower could have answered this question. Egidio, considering the role of cooperatives, the multiplier is a grower that invests, that implements technology, that it's incorporated in the seed production system and has a key role, a strategic role in the chain. In the case of soybean and wheat, or in autogamous, I can say that I've been working for many years in Subsagras, which is a seeding company, a seeders company, that is a multiplier. This is the concept of scaling up or multiplying the work of the developer. Some companies have their own seeds, and others partner in strategic alliances with multiplier. And this provides a number of advantages. If there is a solution and this issue of autogamous starts to have influence in controlled seeds or in seed treatment, because the grower is expected to receive quality seeds, this will be important not only for soybeans but also for other autogamous. The multiplier produces seeds at scale. These plants invest $3, $4, $5 million. It has 2 working shifts. It could have 3 shifts. They employ 20 or 30 people in a given community. So it is a very important role. It is strategic for the seed industry. This is a question for Santiago. Why do you promote the public order of law when many of the opportunities for the future depend on the specific markets or private undertakings? It's clear that modern agriculture requires contracts. The public order would limit the capacity or restrict the capacity to execute contracts. Agriculture would be more commoditized. The public order results in having only commodities and no differential products. It's true that there is a story behind this, that there have been problems in the past. The idea is to start from scratch with new contracts, but this is a sort of reactive behavior. I think that when competition starts, the same thing as we will have the same thing as we have now with corn, as there are many seed companies that produce corn. There is a huge competition. There's no monopoly. In the case of sunflower, of corn, where there is competition among many companies, we don't need to have a public order law. I think that the autogamous market didn't even start in Argentina. Once the law is implemented or is enforced, or for example, this INTA law, the approval of our INTA research project cannot be done with the same resources if you have the capacity to invest more, because you know that later on you will receive a return on that investment. In that case, the public order would be a restricting factor for many programs, many projects, not only private ones, but also public projects. That's what I meant when I said that not the complete law should be public order. When we talk about farmers' safe seed, we should consider the public order to avoid excess in contracts or to avoid the position of a grower that go to a seed company and has to sign a new contract to buy a new seed to grow. If the law provides for the payment of a canon, you shouldn't include that in the law. There's no need to include that in a new contract because the law already provides for that. The same with vegetable crops or with fruits. The public order destroys the working relationship with barley, with rye. We should consider those cases. We would like to evaluate those individual cases. It's something that has to be considered on a case-by-case basis. Yes, that's why I think that we need to solve these issues. It is an public order affair. The public order figure is intended to protect the smallest party in a negotiation. As Santiago says, once we can have previsibility or we can predict things, competition will be better. The state also will have its own role, that everything that is provided in the law is complied with. If somebody wants to be outside the agreement provided for by the law, we need to bear in mind that within the seed industry there are internal contracts. It's not only the relationship between the seed company and the grower. Inside the industry, we also have business relationships, and we have to reach agreements on very conflictive issues. One role of the state can be taking care of that fairness in the negotiation. We fully agree, but we want the law to be as clear as possible, so as we don't need to go to lawyers or to go to consumers protection institutions, because this is what destroys the relationship between the different players and makes negotiations more complicated. We need a law to take into account these relationships and to prevent the growers to make claims or to enter into conflict with the growers. So we need to have an understanding attitude and try to break a balance in all these relationships. This is the spirit of this dialogue group. It's to be transparent, consider all the factors in this negotiation and try to solve solutions. There are many questions that have to do with explaining how will the law be modified and what is the current status. We first reached a consensus. We submitted a document with the ministry. This proposal was reviewed by the different technical groups of the ministry, and you can tell us what the result of that was. As Pedro was just saying, the initial proposal was made by with the private sector, with the union groups, technical groups, APRESID, and the Seed Association. This is a farm safe seed, but that has to be paid. Farmers save seed, but they have to be paid. And this includes all the technology in the seeds. If you buy a sprayer or a tractor, once you pay the bill, you settle all the complete transactions. When you talk about farm safe seed, when you pay the royalty, you have to settle or pay once more 100% of the technology included in that seed. The state, through INASE, controls all these transactions together with the SENASA. This also was sort of controversial because it brings in many legal issues. So you can ask for information at the INASE, and this enables having appropriate control. These are the key items in the law, that you have to pay and that there is control or supervision. And the payment is a lump sum payment. You pay only once. And you have to let the grower know what is the price that he will have to pay for farmers' safe seeds. Another major issue was that when you report, this year you report the seed you have and how much you have planted. This report will have the value of an invoice, so you won't be asking invoices for the future. Today you have this these seeds in the paid farmer safe seed. Requires to explain everything very clearly. We need to explain this to the House representatives. In this type of farm safe seed, the paid farm safe seed, you buy seeds for 100 hectares and you can plant it for free. But if you want to plant 1 more hectare, you have to pay for that. You are the owner of the seed and you can plant them at the price you bought this. But there is another case. If you report that you have the seeds, in the case of wheat, for example, you can plant them for free in the future. But this had to be strictly controlled. We are considering this, but this is something that we have to settle. It's something that we have to agree upon, because what we are looking for is we want new technologies to be introduced. We need all those new technologies. There are many questions that have to do with this 3 years period. This 3-year period will allow us to predict the price of how much we will have to pay for our own safe seeds. There are different cycles during the enforcement of the right or during the validity of the right. We need to wait for the law to be regulated, and then we are going to see what is the consensus we reach. That agreement between private, the varieties of wheat and soybean are not, that is not written in the law. This is a private agreement. So this is not the content of the law, and also this won't be the content of the regulation. Exactly that is the case. In order to understand what is it that we gave way to. on the one hand, that farmers save seed have to be paid, and on the other hand, you know that the property titles that are awarded by the INASE have a validity of 20 years. So we agreed on having 2 cut-off years for wheat and soybean. Under private agreements, this will be enforced, and this means that companies won't. I mean, they resigned the receiving the payment of what happened in the past. If the grower during the first year, this transition first year, has a variety but does not have the invoice, so he cannot demonstrate the origin with a report, with a sworn report, he can acknowledge that he has that variety. This is a cultural change. This won't be magic. This won't change overnight. Probably the INASE will be adjusting things with its control. I want to have to look at this with real perspective. We are talking about the exercising the rights. We are talking about soybean 2012 and wheat 2007. We are talking about the transition. We are going to give way on this. We are going to give way on that. This is an important issue because there are some situations. There are growers that have seeds from some seeds after 2014, and they have saved their own seeds. I think that the framework of the discussion has to be looking into the future because we want to introduce a tool. I think that in 5 years' time, these discussions will disappear. All these issues will be obsolete if the law works, because we will have much more opportunities, and so we will replace the old things that we have been doing so far. What is the spirit of this law? The grower that has saved seeds and is using this variety and feels that it is okay for him to use what is available in the market. Okay, during this transition period, he will have the freedom to continue using that variety. We are talking about this, but this relates only to the transition period. The important thing is what to do after the transition period. This transition period is only 2 or 3 years. The important thing is what to do in the future, what will happen after the transition. We have time for only one more question. This question has to do with the INASE and the strengthening of the INASE. This was the first topic on which we reached consensus. As I said before, the board of the INASE, and the INASE has this police power, has this controlling power, and it has the capacity to detect germplasm, to identify a specific cultivar. The INASE can tell what soybean variety or wheat variety has been planted. The IRS is knocking at. It's not that the IRS in Argentina is knocking at every door. So technology enables this control to be done with no need to control truck by truck or farm by farm. It speeds up things. Technology. The new simple or streamlined system, we are not using anymore the registration office for grains. As of November the 1st, please, this is important to be communicated. As of November the 1st, all these procedure, this submittance of reports have been simplified. The most important thing is to think big. Let's think about this huge opportunity that we have with this law. I know that we need to fine-tune many things, and probably many people want to have the exact word that fits their needs, but we don't. We need this law. This is a huge political opportunity. We have the goodwill of the people that participate in this discussion, and we need to be able to solve these small details. Your background, your story is very valuable. You have to share your story with others. I talked with cedars that they didn't know what was the spirit of this law. They thought that it was a huge company that wanted to charge for the seats, but this is not the case. For instance, for peanut, as we are in Córdoba, we need genetics to compete with the rest of the world. We need breeding. So let's think big and try to solve this in this political opportunity that we are having right now. Probably we won't have it later on in the future. I want to thank basically you all, because this has been a very richening process. As Santiago said, we have the most important thing is that there was goodwill and thinking on the common well-being or welfare of the country. I highlight this last message. Each of us in our own workplaces, let us talk to the people that are involved. So this is not an easy topic. You need to explain it. So the more we explain this, the more legislators will understand how important it is to close this successfully.